be talking about waiting and how waiting sucks. My name is Anthony, and I'm your host. And my friends, I have JJ. You guys remember him from last episode. My boy Alex. I got Deanie, the main man himself. I got Gavin. You want me to go? Do you want to say Dookie or do you want to say?
Whatever.
My boy Dookie. And the man, the myth, the legend, my best friend John Cologne. We want to welcome you guys. Today we're going to be talking about one of the best things about this new generation, right? The fact that they hate waiting. Like, we're in a fast-paced generation. You know, before you had to send a letter to your homie, you know, I don't know, whatever you had to do. What do you call those? They have to go.
Pen pals? Stamps?
No, not stamp. No, it's like the metal piece. You gotta like.
Morse code.
Thank you, bro. See, thank you. Someone had to know it because I didn't. Like there wasn't a sense of urgency. You know, you send the letter out or whatever, and you had to wait. Now you text your homie, and if he doesn't respond in 30 seconds, you feel butthurt. Like they all said yeah. So I want you guys to talk a little bit about that waiting and how it sucks. Like, in your experience, man, first of all, why does waiting suck? Second of all, what in your life have you experienced that made you hate the waiting game even more? Ooh, whoever wants to go first. Jay, you want to go first?
Sure, why not?
First.
Waiting. Oof. I guess one of the times I wasn't a big fan of waiting was, what was I doing? I guess I'm just not very patient. And when it comes to waiting, I guess I was just waiting for just someone to realize what they were doing, and it didn't click for them.
Yeah.
And that alone, just like, why are you not just do it right or pay attention or just I guess observe what's going on, read the room, something like that.
Yeah. So you want people to do it like
I guess.
like rapido. Like, come on, man.
To our audience, he's talking about me.
Partially.
I guarantee that.
Me and JJ butt heads often, but that's for another podcast.
Even
Christmas.
to our audience, John got here like 5 minutes late. We had to wait for him. I'm kidding. We didn't have to wait for him. We kind of
did have to wait for him.
No, it's all cool. He came in rushing like a wrecking ball. Like, am I late? Nah, he's good. Anyways, all jokes aside, when I think about like waiting, I think about like Noah. Right? Noah had a task, and God told him, hey, I'm gonna have you build an ark, and you're gonna put X amount of animals in there, and I'm gonna flood the earth. And I'm sure he probably thought, okay, this is crazy. I can't do this. But even more so, he probably didn't expect for him to take 120 years. Like, can you imagine that? You had to wait 120 years.
That's crazy.
You had to wait like 120 years. You know, like you're taking 120 years to build something. I get so impatient when I'm building like a couch or a bed set and it's like 30 minutes in. And here's Noah taking 120 years to build something. Granted, it's not the same as a bed set, right? But 30 seconds, 30 minutes versus 120 years, I'm going to take the bed set over that. But even more so, I think about like even the anxiety that the disciples must have had when Jesus Christ was crucified and laid to rest. And now they had to wait 3 days for him to come back. And obviously that's not 120 years, but when the guy you've been following around for 3 years all of a sudden is persecuted and killed and crucified, and now you have to wait, you're going to get a little impatient. And that's what I notice a lot about my generation, right? I'm not going to say your generation. We're both in the same exact generation, but we're so impatient. Like, we want things now as soon as possible. John, can you like testify a little bit about that waiting and how much you hate it? Because you're looking at me like, yeah, bro, I've been trying to talk.
Well, no, it's funny because I'm in a season of waiting.
Yeah.
You know, like real life, like I'm there. You know, and I think it's different now than when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I was kind of waiting, but I didn't really know exactly what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
You know, as to now I do. And the thing that most frustrates you is when you almost think you're ready. before you really are. Like that happens all the time when it comes to waiting in life. You kind of, in your brain, you go like 150 miles per hour, and in reality, like timing falls like 50. And you kind of, I think what I've had to learn is that waiting, as annoying and as much as it sucks, is like a blessing. I think if God was just to give us everything we wanted when we ask, it wouldn't go very good for us at all. As impatient as we are with a lot of things. So that waiting has been, just so many different times in my life where I've had to wait and just remain faithful to the last thing that God had told me.
Yep. Yeah.
And nobody would really know that you're waiting. It's just kind of like you're just doing what you have to do.
Yeah. That's why it's important to surround yourself with like mentors in the waiting season. Like you have to surround yourself with, a John, an Anthony, a Nani, Carmelo, anyone that you surround yourself with that is a mentor. You have to surround yourself with them because they're the ones that tell you, hey, you're a little impatient right now. It's okay. You're going to get there. Like whether it takes you 6 months or it takes you 8 months, and college students can testify for that. That whether it takes them, a full semester to a full 2 years to get their associates, or it takes them 4 years to get their associates, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they got their associates, and they finished and they crossed the line, and now they're running another race, for their bachelor's if they decide that. But nevertheless, the concept remains the same, and that's that in the waiting period, one of the most important things is that you have to surround yourself with mentors. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you don't surround yourself with mentors, you'll oftentimes find yourself stumbling, wondering, what am I doing in life? Like, who's going to take care of me, and who do I seek advice from? And, what do I do to better where I am now? And I surrounded myself. John is not only one of my best friends, but he's my mentor in a lot of areas. I'll send him up preaching. I'll call him up like, yo, bro, I need some advice in this, and we'll talk for hours if we have to, because waiting absolutely sucks. And I want you guys to talk a little bit about your experiences with like mentors and, how they've helped you and how they've helped you in the waiting season, and maybe how they've made it feel like it's not so bad to wait. Anyone want to go first? Like, didn't you want to talk a little bit first?
I guess so. So I wait for a lot of things in life, but I'm the most impatient person. It's like, I hate waiting.
1,000%.
Preach.
Like,
1,000%.
waiting for me, it just angers me because, I don't know, I'm just so impatient. But lately I've been having to learn how to, patience, I've waited for so much. People have promised me stuff like that. Promises from God that I have to learn to, wait for.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's just, I suck at it.
That's just like Abraham, right? Abraham was given a promise by God, and he was so impatient. His wife was so impatient. They were both impatient that he ended up getting another woman pregnant. And he thought, surely this is the son that's gonna, be the one that God promised me. And God was like, nah, you were too impatient. Like, that's not the one. And unfortunately, that woman and that kid had to walk away from that, from that area, from that, that village, that family. And that story goes on, right? There's more to that story. I'm not gonna just say that it ends right there. There's a lot more to that. But that's good. Promises from God. That's one of the biggest ones, because all you're doing is sitting down and you're waiting, and you're like, but wait, God, didn't you tell me that I would receive this, and didn't you tell me that I was going to have this by now? Like, what's happening? So that's really good that you mentioned that. Any of you guys want to testify about that as well?
I was gonna kind of try to piggyback off what John said, where how he's in a waiting period and all that. I feel like being in a period like that can't always be a bad thing, because even with a mentor, it gives you time to think about what your next course of action is going to be.
Yeah.
So I feel like just thinking about what you're going to do and having a mentor there to help you would help you make better decisions.
Yep.
It's true. And it gives you the ability to kind of mess up, If you were where you're going to go, there would be a lot more responsibility tagged to whatever you're doing, but when you're in those kind of in between points where you can lean on people, and it gives you the ability to mess up and still correct that, instead of being you're like Stephen Furtick and then you say something wild during the sermon, at least now you can kind of work some of that stuff out. There's still some learning, there's still some practicing that you can do before God brings you to where he's going to bring you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of missed that. I think a story with one of my mentors was I was in like a pretty serious portion of waiting career-wise. And, you know, he took me for a walk, and so I'm like, yeah, you know, I lead at my church, and these are some of my ambitions, these are some of my goals, these are some of the things I want to do. And he was like, so like, what time do you take to like work on yourself, you know? And I was like, sometimes at night, you know, I read, or, you know, I'm super big in studying, so I study. And he's like, you ever try to take the morning? You ever try to get up early?
Yeah.
And I remember being like, no, I like to sleep in.
Yeah.
You know? And it was cool because having a mentor showed me like a roadmap, you know? I could then kind of see, hey, if I'm going to be here, I might as well refine my craft.
Yep.
How did you do it? You know, what are some of the things you would give me? And that's where like a lot of the like odd habits that I have were birthed, because I was like, okay, if I get up early, if I drink some salt water, as nasty as it is.
Oh my God. This
If
man
I-
drinks salt water and eats dark chocolate.
95% dark
Like,
chocolate,
together?
you know, like,
95% dark chocolate.
but
That's like mood.
But this is how it started, was where I was in this portion of waiting, but I also still had some responsibility. Like, you know, I do things for church.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so how do I lead? Like, how do I deal with other people? And he's like, you gotta learn how to lead yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but like, there's people I'm kind of responsible for.
Yeah.
You know, so I need some help now. And he just kept pressing me with that. And he told me something. I mean, it took me all the way, where he said, you know, John, if you work hard on your job, you know, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you'll make a fortune.
That's
You
good.
know, and he showed me the practicality of taking that time and being like, bro, you got all this stuff that's waiting on you. You're waiting on it. There's things that are going to happen. In the meantime, you want to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. You don't want them to ask you to go and teach and then you're not ready. You don't have any sermons ready. You haven't practiced preaching.
Yep.
You haven't invested in your gift. You don't want people to give you more responsibility that all of a sudden you haven't been able to manage anything well, and now you
Yeah.
have more responsibility. Like, I think that for me was so crucial, you know, because I then made it up in my mind, like, I don't want to like preach in 2023 and have like a 2015 revelation of God.
Yeah.
Like, I want to have the discipline of prayer now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to have the ability to work on my things so that I'm not like tubby when God asked me to do a whole bunch and I don't have any energy to do anything.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
So
good.
there was a lot for me where having a mentor gave me that roadmap. You
Yeah.
know, it gave me somewhere to kind of go.
That's good.
So waiting wasn't as bad.
Yep.
You know, because I was just working on my craft. That's fine. I'm not there. But man, when I get there, there's nothing stopping me. You know?
Yeah. That's good. Alex, you wanna talk a little bit about that? Harp off of anything like that?
We live in a world that is impatient.
Yeah.
Like, we get everything fast. We're used to getting everything fast. And for me, to be honest, like, there was this one time we were in small groups. We were saying, like, when you want to feel God. When for me, like, I wanted to feel God. Like, I kept seeing people feeling God. And I wanted to feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm impatient. Like, I want everything,
Yeah.
like, in the moment. And I have mentors telling me, like, don't don't go to the bad people and stay there.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna feel him soon. And I waited, and I actually felt him.
Yeah.
It was like I was patient enough
Yeah.
to feel him.
Yeah. Patience is key. It's what's needed. I mean, you wanna feel God and you wanna feel His presence, but He's not a rushed God. You know, He's not one to try to speed up the process just because you want Him to speed up. You know, He has His time and place for everything, and if you're willing to wait, He's gonna show you. Like, I'm still waiting on things that were spoken over my life 3 years ago. You know, like, JJ's gonna have to wait like 20 years now. It's gonna be like 5 years before he sees anything that was spoken. I mean, spoken over his life. But the funny thing about even the waiting period is that as you are waiting, some of us don't even recognize that things are unfolding before our very eyes. So I had someone speak to me, and they said, and one time I was going through this moment where I'm like, God, I don't see what you're doing for me over my life. I don't see none of that. It's impossible. I don't see it. And before I knew it, right? Because someone spoke over my life and they said, you know, you're going to be speaking to hundreds and thousands of youth, and I doubted that. I'm like, that's impossible. Like that doesn't I don't see it. And someone reminded me, and God spoke through this person and said, hey, you have influence over like the youth. I mean, I have influence over you guys. You know, if I may humbly speak, I say jump and you guys are gonna say how high. Not because you guys are dumb, but because you guys trust my leadership, because you guys trust who I am as a leader. And in that very moment when someone said, hey, listen, you have influence over 5, why are you worrying about the 1,000? You have to let God take you from the 5 to the 10 to the 20 to the 50 to the 100, little by little. And it hit me right there that which was what was spoken over my life was unfolding before my very eyes. I started seeing everything being unfolded. And that's one of the best things about the waiting period, that although it sucks, if you pay attention really closely, you're going to see things unfolding. They said you're going to, you know, bring your family to church, then recognize that they respect you a little more and they ask you questions about God. Or they said that you're going to, you know, one day speak to hundreds of youth, recognize that your influence is growing and now you don't have 2 friends, now you have 10 friends and they all listen to you. If they say you're the heart of the friend group and one day you're going to pastor all of them, then recognize that they all go up to you for advice. God is unfolding the very prophecy that he spoke over your life before your very eyes, and some of us don't even see it because we are impatient and we want to have it now. So in this waiting period, one of the biggest things that I learned was that I had to educate myself, because it's almost like I tell you, hey, I mean, this is a perfect example. John wants me to run the St. Patrick's, is it a 5K?
10K.
10K? 10K? 10K?
That is
6.2
crazy.
miles, baby.
I was told
Oh
a
my
5.
God, I thought it was
Yeah,
5.
You told me 5.
I thought it was 5. So anyway, so John wants me to run this, and it's almost like he says, Anthony, next month we're gonna run this 10K apparently. I want you to run with me. It's almost like I heard him say that, but now I'm gonna go home and eat cereal and lay in bed. It's foolish of me to do that. The best thing that I should do, he asked me to do that. He asked me to join him. Now I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna educate myself. I'm gonna learn how to run. What posture is the best one? My breathing technique. And the same thing it is over your spiritual life. God prophesies over your life. God speaks over your life. And now in your waiting, you have to slow down and say, okay, how do I educate myself? Like, I'm gonna read the Bible. I'm gonna surround myself with mentors. I'm gonna listen to pastors preaching on Sundays. I'm gonna do all these things, because then you're gonna get to a moment where God calls you into purpose and you're like, oh snap, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Like, can you imagine, like John, you know, God spoke over your life, and can you imagine if for those years you did nothing, you didn't study the scripture, you didn't study the Bible, you didn't study pastor sermons, you didn't study anything, and all of a sudden the youth pastors call you to preach and you're like, I don't know what to do. It's foolish of us. So waiting is crucial. It's crucial in the waiting that you educate yourself. So I want you guys to understand that very, very clearly. So this is my question. As you're waiting, all right, I told you a bunch of different things: listening to sermons, reading scripture. You know, maybe you practice preaching to your mirror like I do on a daily basis. This is my question. What do my mirror is saved and sanctified?
My dishwasher.
What are you doing to educate yourself in the waiting? And that's a legit question. And Tuki, I want to hear from you first. What are you doing to educate yourself in the waiting?
For me, I'm really just communicating with people who have gotten closer to their goal, a lot closer than what I am to mine. So I kind of just communicate and kind of learn how they stay on track. Because the hardest thing for me is I see the goal and I understand what it is, but I never really focus on what I have to do to get there.
Yep.
So I kind of end up just focusing on my end goal and not realizing that there's so many other things I have to do before I'm able to achieve this. Mm. So I tend to just forget about all the other steps.
That's good.
That's good, because you kind of have to not be married to the outcome, you know, when it comes to waiting. Like the Bible says that up till the time that God fulfilled Joseph's dreams, God tested his character. So you could think that the test was the end, but the test was on the journey the whole way. you know?
right. Yeah.
And a lot of times when God says stuff to us, we don't necessarily have the full revelation as far as what it is. The Bible says we prophesy in part. So Abraham sees all these stars and God says, I'm going to give you a nation.
Yep.
He didn't necessarily see tribes. You know, he didn't necessarily see the whole history of how Israel would unfold.
Yep.
So when we're waiting on God for several things, like we don't necessarily have to be married to the specifics, but we have to see that like our character is being tested the whole way.
That's right.
And that's like an answer. You know, when you see like other people and you see that they're a little bit further along than you like my questions usually aren't like, what are you doing now? Or how is God using you now? Like my questions are, what was it like from point zero to halfway there to now? You know, like you can kind of see somebody who's like excelling at what they do, and maybe what they're doing now will like blow your mind.
Yep.
But they started at the same point as you. So how did you get from there to here? Is an important test.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an important thing to ask. So I like that a lot. Like,
Yeah, that's really good. Dini, you want to say a little something about that?
Honestly, I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I got you.
'Cause-
What are you doing to educate yourself, or really to get closer to, I guess I can say, to who God calls you to be while you're waiting?
Honestly, just trying to like take the time to actually like pay attention to what's going on. Because I tend to do like, I always try to find something to do to stay busy, because I hate like just waiting to do something. So I always try to skip ahead, do stuff ahead of myself.
Yep.
So honestly, just waiting to see what's going on,
Yeah.
figuring out like what's my purpose, like what do I do to get there.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like, I've been like reading a lot, the Bible. I've been listening to Revelation, like playing the Bible app,
Yeah.
and it's just honestly reading the Bible, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just seeing how long it took multiple people in the Bible to achieve what God spoke over them.
Yeah.
Stuff
a lot
like
of them
that.
died waiting for the promised.
Yeah, people. Yeah, people. I mean, Moses didn't get to, right? Was it Moses? Moses didn't get to enter the promised land. That's a whole different story. He had his reason. God had his reasoning, but like, it's crazy. Yeah, some people didn't get to see that. And I pray to God that we are a generation that gets but a taste of what God has over our lives at the very least, and even then some. And I'm really thankful because we go to a church that equips us, that we have different avenues, right? We have small groups, we have growth track, right? We have freedom classes, all these things that help us get closer to what the will of God is over our lives, that bring us one step closer to our purpose. I'm really thankful because even I can call up my pastors right now and say, hey, I'm going through something and I don't understand what the heck is happening or why I'm walking in this valley, and I need some help. And I'm really thankful because, I mean, we all go to the same church. We're all surrounded by the same people. It's never a matter of, is there anyone for me? It's a matter of, are you connecting to the right people? So that's really crucial. I mean, educating yourself, just reading scripture, and really understanding a little bit about, what it takes to weigh with this impatient generation. And Jay, can you just speak a little bit about, because again, the prophet just spoke over your life not too long ago, and he said some big stuff over your life. What do you do now? Like, what are your thoughts in this waiting? Because it's not happening tomorrow, what he spoke over your life, but it's happening. What are you doing in this waiting period?
Well, I guess I could say the first thing that I did do was talk to my dad.
Yeah.
We were just in a parking lot, and we went over everything he said, and we just talked about it. And then after that, I went to you, and I was just trying to figure out what was next. And one of the key things you told me was keep doing what you're doing, because when it comes, you'll know.
Yeah.
And with that, now that's what I've been doing. I've just been consistent in my faith and consistent in what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And because that's the only way what's next will come.
Yeah, and that's good. We have to remember David. He was anointed at a young age, but he wasn't appointed until a few decades later. Like, he was in his 30s, if I'm not mistaken. What happened? What was David doing after he was told that he was going to be king? He went back. He went back to doing what was familiar. So when God speaks over your life, that's the encouragement, right? That's the one of the underlining answers when it comes to what do. It's, we go back. We see that David went back to tending to the sheep. He went back to learning his instrument. He went back to, eventually he grew up and he joined the armed forces. He obeyed God. In the waiting season, you walk in obedience, right? Because it was his obedience to his father that led him to the face of Goliath eventually. His father said, take this bread and cheese to your brothers. And as you're walking in purpose, you're going to have haters. Because his brothers saw him walking, and his brothers said, what are you doing here? I know why you're here. You're arrogant. You're prideful. You just want to be here to be here. And it was his obedience to his father that led him to then slaying Goliath. Something that no one wanted to. Everyone was scared. No one wanted to do that. But one of the most important things about that story, one of my favorite things, right? And we'll conclude with this. One of my favorite things is this. When you walk in your purpose, when you are in your waiting season, you have to be very careful as you are walking with mentors. Number one, not to make decisions based on your emotions. Do not be emotionally driven, because if that's the case, you will fall like David did when he was attracted to one of his boys' wives and he ended up sending him to die. Right? That's not going to be the case for us, but his emotions led him to that position. Number two, as you're walking in purpose and as you're walking in the waiting season, you want to be careful not to put someone else's armor on. Notice in that story that David tried to put Saul's armor on, and that didn't work. It was too heavy. He had to walk with whatever God gave, like his instruments, because it was his calling over his life, not Saul's calling. I'm not going to put Saul's stuff. I'm not going to put John's armor on me, and John's not going to put my armor on him. Because he has purpose over his life that God has called him, and I have purpose. So be very careful in the waiting season not to put anyone else's armor on as you walk and you get closer to the very purpose of God. Do you guys have any final statements? Anything you want to add to that? John, go ahead.
Sorry. When you guys were like talking about like the waiting period and stuff, one thing came to mind with like networking a lot. Because networking is really important, especially finding somebody like where you want to be. That's something I learned a while ago, was that if I want to own a business one day, I'm going to like go to that like a business owner who's willing to teach me, and I'm going to offer something in return for him teaching me. So like if I want to be, say I wanted to be like a pastor or a youth leader, if I wanted to be a youth leader, I would go to you and ask if like I would be up for it, and if I would like had the like skills to do that, but also how to go about doing that. So I just wanted to like kind of add that.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah. John, you have any final thoughts?
I don't know. I'm inspired by y'all, because I definitely wasn't JJ. God used to speak to me when I was young and I started acting brand new. I would show up and be like entitled,
Yeah.
because I was impatient, and I think a lot of people are like that. They're entitled because they're impatient,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like God spoke over me though, so why am I still going to do this?
Yeah.
I think JJ's hilarious because literally he received that, and then like a week and a half later, he's at youth with me, and I'm like, Jay, do this. Jay, I need this. Jay, I need this. Jay, wait, before you go pray with me, Jay. And he's like, okay, what else do you need? I got you.
Yeah.
And just remain faithful to the task.
Yep.
And I think there's something to be said about that, because
Yeah.
that's definitely not where I was, you know, until I then had to learn the hard way. Like, you got to humble yourself up, homie.
Yeah. That's good. Awesome. You guys have any final thoughts?
With what John said about you after that feeling entitled, that's the one thing I didn't want to do. Because I didn't want to walk out of the back because I was just wiping myself off and go out and be like, oh, I'm better than you. Because, like, everyone has a timing. Mm-hmm. And just some are earlier, but everyone's calling will come when they're ready.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good word right there.
Good. Do you have any final thoughts? You're looking at me like you got some fire, bro.
Just because you get like a reminder that you're getting closer to your goal doesn't mean that you've hit it yet. Because that was a big part for me. That I kept getting like these little like rewards, like you're doing well, you're getting there, you're getting closer. Yet I know it's still far in my future. Mm-hmm. So I kind of had to learn that these are just reminders, and that these are kind of like a reward for staying on the right track and trying to achieve what was blessed over me.
Yep.
So yeah.
Awesome. It's good stuff. We definitely want to make a part 2 to this episode, because I know there's a lot more that you guys can say in the waiting period. There's a lot more that we can teach. There's a lot more that could be said about what it takes to wait, and a lot more testimonies that we can speak on when it comes to the waiting period. But I want to thank you guys for being here today. You guys are a generation that inspires me. Yeah, it's I look up to you guys. I mean, I walked into church for the first time, and the first time I wanted to serve, JJ was my leader. I was 19 years old, and I had a 10-year-old telling me what to do at the time. You know, like, I was like, wait, I just came from like military training. I was ROTC. I was captain of the track team. I was like lifeguard of the year, and I was everything. I was like, y'all like,
John wasn't.
Be John, nah. But I was all these things, and there I was being humbled by a 10-year-old at the time, you know? And it was a very good experience, because I got to see how great you guys are, how powerful your words are, and your actions, and how the Lord wants to use you guys. So be encouraged. Let the waiting season happen. Let people teach you. Be mentored wherever you are. Learn, educate yourself as you continue moving and walking into the purpose of God. And know that you have friends, you have brothers, you have mentors in me and John, and we love you guys a lot.